You must follow the principle. The principle is you're surrounded by prosperity. You live in prosperity and you have the power within you to create the reality you desire and to continue to recreate it as you go. Like that's the principle. The principle is abundance. The principle is prosperity and that everything is always working for you. However, the evidence that we see with our five senses most of the time is the direct opposite of the principle. Hello, prosperity seeker, and welcome to another episode of the Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez, and over these next few episodes, we're going to do a deeper dive into universal laws that govern prosperity and creation. If you listen to my last podcast, I talked about law of attraction Disney style, but we're going to do a deeper dive into the 21 different universal laws that I have discovered in my over a decade's worth of research that really help you in shifting your mindset, exploring more prosperous thoughts rather than positive thoughts. There is a difference there, and really helping you leverage the power of the universe as you are wanting to redesign your reality and get to that next level without having to struggle your way to it. So in my research, it was really interesting to me because as I'm listing all of these laws, I realized, there's a bunch of laws that are really, really helpful to use when you're just getting going along your journey. When you've got that baby dream, so to speak, and it's still just little and it's fragile. And there are other laws that seem to apply better when you're frustrated or when it seems like everything is falling apart or nothing is working. And so I put them into two different categories: laws to use to when you're just getting going and laws to use when nothing is working. And so we're going to talk about the laws to use when you're just getting going and while you're, when it's still bright and new, when it's still a novelty and you're still feeling really motivated and, you've got that momentum behind you. And then in the middle, it gets messy in the middle, right? Like that's when the come aparts seem to happen. And then there are laws that we're going to talk about in some later episodes about what to do when nothing is working. I have found that universal laws are enormously powerful to help you leverage the power of the universe. It's what helps you not do the heavy lifting anymore. It helps you so that you don't feel like you're constantly in the grind or you can only play after you work. Oh, and guess what? The work is never done, so you don't get to play. And that's really not how nature teaches us how to actually create. There doesn't have to be all of this stress and strain and we ever see a flower like screaming its way out of the ground trying to blossom? No, you don't. In fact, I see flowers blossoming in cracks in the concrete or way, way high up in the mountains where there's very little food and water and the environment is really harsh. But we get to use nature as our example, and let's use the laws for us instead of against us. And that's the biggest thing. First of all, we've got to know what the laws are. But more importantly than that, we really need to know how to use them to our advantage. Because I'll tell you what, there was nothing more frustrating to me when I learned the law of attraction to try to use it and it wasn't working. It was because I didn't know how to use the law correctly. So I'm like, I know I'm doing this wrong, but I don't know how to do this right. And so I'm just going to set this law down because apparently it works for everybody except for me, but I didn't know how to use it correctly. So let's like unpack all of these different laws and then find a ways to make them work for us because we're actually using the tool correctly. So the first one I want to start with to get you going is called the law of perpetual transmutation. That's a mouthful. It took me a long time to remember this law, the law of perpetual transmutation. And what this law says is everything is either moving into form or out of form. That's what perpetual is always, and transmutation is changing forms, transmuting, either going up or down. And everything is either going into form or out of form, particularly the ideas we have, the dreams that we have. So let's see how this law actually works in our everyday life, shall we? Now, Everything is energy, right? At our core, everything is energy, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. All it can do is change forms. So if you have enough energy behind something, eventually it turns to matter and it turns to mass when you get more and more energy behind it. So I want you to think about that in terms of how you want to redesign your reality, whether you want more money coming into your life where you're not working quite so hard for it or working hard at all for it. Quite honestly, I don't believe in working harder. I believe in working easier these days. It's a whole lot more fun and a whole lot more productive and effective in getting money to come when you know how to work easier. But it doesn't matter whether it's money, it doesn't matter whether it's your health or your body or your relationships or your level of connection with God. When we have enough energy behind something, it turns into matter. But everything starts as an idea, all right? It starts as energy. And the thing that was really powerful to me when I was first diving into this is finally coming to the realization that my dreams are just as real when they're in my mind and they're in my imagination as they will be when I experience them, when I hold them in my physical hands and I'm actually experiencing them on the physical plane in my body. The only difference between them is the form that it's taking. That's it. So your dreams are just as real in your mind as they will be when you experience them in their body. Your job is to get them to change form. And here's the great thing about that. We're wired to do it. We're wired to be creators. And so this actually comes quite naturally to us when we'll finally get out of our own way. So let's look to nature as an example with perpetual transmutation. So you can see what I'm talking about. Water exists in several forms. It exists in the form of a vapor or a gas, water vapor, or steam. Water exists as a liquid as water that we drink, and then as solid form, as in snow or ice. Well, interesting thing about water is it doesn't have to move through all four of these forms in life. In fact, like a vapor doesn't always turn to steam, doesn't always turn to rain. In fact, really dark rain clouds don't even always turn to rain. The conditions and the environment have to be right in order to turn that rain cloud into rain. Rain doesn't always turn to snow. It doesn't always turn to ice. The environment has to be conducive for it to change that form. All right. And that was so powerful to me because our ideas are the same. We start with this idea in our head that doesn't have a whole lot of form. So it's kind of, gaseous, right? It's kind of like this idea vapor, right? But the more energy we put behind it with our thoughts, then the more matter we get to it, the thicker and thicker and heavier it becomes until it has to change form. So it's super cool. So how do we do this? Well, I already told you, we do it with our thoughts, but we have to do it very deliberately with our thoughts, because just like certain thoughts will make this idea cloud bigger and bigger and heavier and then rain down on you in the form of opportunities and connections and your dream actually becoming your reality. Other thoughts will push it away into the ether. So it just becomes this wispy little cloud and it's never part of your physical experience. So the trick with this is having the right thoughts relative to your idea, relative to your dream. So it's all about belief. It's about faith. It's about positive expectation. It's about joyful expectation. All of those things as you're thinking about this dream that you want to make your reality is what makes the idea cloud bigger and bigger and bigger until it just bursts and then it has to change form. It has to. It's how it works. It's physics on a spiritual level. And so it's got to change form. Now, what we generally do though is when we think about our dream, we start going into doubt. We start going into how am I going to do this? And because we don't know how, if we knew how, we would have done it long before now. We start feeling defeated before we've even started. It starts feeling really, really big for us. We feel really small in comparison to our dream. And we think, well, that's impossible. So we start disbelieving it. We start getting skeptical about it. We talk to other people who don't know how to turn their ideas into their reality. And so then they start out of the kindness of their heart. They don't want to see you get hurt, but they're like, well, have you thought about this and this and this? And here are some more reasons why you can't do it. So we pile more doubt on it. And then we kind of get disappointed and then we get discouraged. And then in the meantime, our idea and our goal just starts to dissipate into the ethers because we're literally just pushing it and pushing it and pushing it away from us. It's how we actually get in our own way. Worry and doubt are the biggest factors of us getting in our own way. So we have to get out of that and just go into that vision of our dream, that vision of our future with a willingness to say yes to it. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, that would be really, really great. Joe Dispenza says that we need to stop being defined by the memories of our past and instead be defined by our visions of the future. And I just love that so much. And that's part of using perpetual transmutation to help you being defined by your visions of the future and just saying yes to that and just getting more and more excited about it. You don't have to know the hows, not when you first get going. You just got to know what it is you want and start going after it. Another law is the law of vibration. So the law of vibration says that everything vibrates and that vibration acts as a medium or a vehicle for transferring signals. So we already know this. Everything vibrates at a specific frequency, including your dreams, including the prosperity that you want in your life. The only reason you're not experiencing that on the physical level yet is that you're not a vibrational match to it. That's the only reason your vibrations don't match. Now, what we're taught to do is try to pull our dream down to our level and try to create that way. But that doesn't ever work. We need to raise our vibration to match the vibration of whatever it is that we're after. So every thought has a specific vibration. Emotions are physical indicators of where we're vibrating at any given time. And there is a physical counterpart that matches every vibration. That means everything in your current circumstance right now is a vibrational match to where you vibrate most of the time, to where your frequency is most of the time. And guess what? Doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Everything in your circumstance is a perfect vibrational match to where you are most of the time in your own frequency. So how do we change that? Well, the easiest and the fastest way to do it is to change your own vibration. Most people do this backwards, though. They wait for circumstances to change and then they can change their circumstances. They wait for their money story to change so that they can then change their money story. And I'm going to say this over and over and over again, but that is just not how it works. If it worked, like that's what you've been doing, right? How's it working for you so far? That's what I have been doing for years and years because that's what we were taught to do. Well, if things aren't working, then just go work harder. Do something different. Change up your behavior. No, I can change my behavior all I want, but if I'm still in the same vibration of lack and of worry and of fear, and I have to work really hard and nothing ever changes, then nothing's ever really going to change. Not the lasting change that you're after and not the amount of change that you desire. So people will try to change their vibration through positivity. Positivity does not change your vibration. This is not positive thinking. This is prosperity thinking. And there is a big difference. Positive thinking will not bring prosperity into your life. It won't. But prosperous thinking will bring positivity into your life. So let me give you an example of this. Most of the time, because we're taught to wear these masks, right? It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, like I'm great, no problem here. Look at my Facebook pictures, the great trip I took with my family. I'm not going to show you all the behind the scenes where we hated on each other and where we were so miserable together. We're just going to show you the perfect family, right? Like all of that. And not that we want to go around like life is an abyss and nothing ever good happens. Like we don't want to do that either. And of course, we always want to put our best foot forward, but we just slap the mask on and say everything's great. Well, everything is completely falling apart. And so this is what it looks like. I had a friend who was going through a really difficult divorce and I hadn't seen her in a long time. And I said, "How are you doing?" And she looked at me and she smiled and she nodded her head and she said these exact words, "Well, we've discovered that rock bottom has a basement." And those of you who are just listening to this podcast and can't see it on YouTube, she just smiled. She just had this big smile on her face and nodding. And that's what I'm doing right now. Big smile on my face and nodding. Rock bottom has a basement. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. So she was smiling and nodding, and yet her vibration was her vibration was rock bottom has a basement, because that's where she was at the time. I remember when I was really we were in the throes, we were in the throes of financial Armageddon or financial apocalypse, whatever you want to call it. Like we'd hit the rock bottom for sure. Not the physical rock bottom quite yet, but I was really working to get out of that. And so I was a crossing guard at the time. And so I was just like, I would greet the kids with a smile. And I'd say, man, I hope you have a really great day today. And, and I would just be like, isn't life great? And I was talking with my mentor at the time, and she was like, that's not going to change anything. And I remember being offended by that. And I'm like, I'm a naturally optimistic person, and I look at the bright side of things. And she's like, but Allyson, that's not changing your vibration, because how do you feel most of the time? And I was like, well, I'm still waking up in anxiety most of the time. And anytime I think about our bank account, my stomach just drops clear to my toes. And I feel a whole lot of pressure and a whole lot of burden to try to fix things. And I don't know how this is going to be fixed. So I'm in a whole lot of worry and anxiety. And she was like, positivity is not changing it. You being, smiling, it's better than, again, just like everything is terrible, but that's not changing your vibration. And she was quite direct with me, quite forceful, which she normally isn't. And she was like, I don't normally talk this way, but you just have to understand that what you're doing right now it's not going to change anything. You have to change your vibration. And even though I resisted for a minute, I'm also very coachable. So I really thought about what she had told me in that session. And I was like, gosh, you know what? You're right. You're right. What I am doing is the smiling poo emoji. That's what I'm doing. Rock bottom has a basement is the physical equivalent of a smiling poo emoji. And my whole life was this great big poo emoji at the time. And I was just slapping the smiley face on it like, everything's falling apart, but at least we have our health. But I didn't feel it. Bob Proctor says words are just noise. Vibrations never lie. And so that's why the law of vibration is so, so powerful. It's why things took so long to shift, because I was working really, really hard in 3 jobs and in changing my behaviors instead of changing my vibration and changing my beliefs, which is what was causing the whole environment anyway, just because I didn't know better. And so, I look back at that with love and compassion and understanding. But now that I know better, you better bet that I do a whole lot better, but I do a whole lot different. You change your vibration. So it's no more smiling poo emoji that's going on. It's really just getting in there and doing the work that's required so that you're feeling better from moment to moment. And sometimes better, like for me, better was just relief. I just wanted to feel relief for a few minutes. But the law of vibration is really, really powerful, that if you want different opportunities to come, you've got to be a vibrational match to those different opportunities. Otherwise, you just look at the lucky ones, right, that are always getting the lucky breaks. And you're like, why doesn't that ever happen to me? Or an opportunity will come and you'll be like, oh, no, I could never do that. That's way too much money. That requires a move. I don't know that I have the skills for that. Or you'll pass it by, because everything in your environment is a vibrational match to where you are and who you are, actually. James Allen said that men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. And as I have delved into this more and more myself, I have come to realize that it's not even so much who I am. It is, but it doesn't have to be that big. It's what feeling am I choosing into most of the time. It's you become what you choose. And that is on a vibrational level. Next law, the law of obedience. So the law of obedience says that your life is shaped based on how well you understand and you apply the laws. So you're either going to believe and live and obey the principle of the law or the physical or empirical evidence that is surrounding you. Most people believe and obey the evidence of their circumstances rather than the principle of what's really going on. But the life you live is shaped by how well you obey these laws. So let's like bring it home so we can see how this actually works in our everyday life. You must follow the principle. The principle is you're surrounded by prosperity. You live in prosperity and you have the power within you to create the reality you desire and to continue to recreate it as you go. Like that's the principle. The principle is abundance. The principle is prosperity and that everything is always working for you. However, the evidence that we see with our five senses most of the time is the direct opposite of the principle. We don't have enough money. There isn't enough to go around. I'm not enough to live the life of my dreams. I've got to work really hard for somebody else. All the answers are outside of me. Like all of this, the world is a really scary place to live. People are out to get you. You can't trust anybody. So we're obeying all of this evidence that we see with that our own five senses have brought in. And when we do that, we come from a place of lack. We come from a place of fear, a place of worry, of doubt, and of struggle. And it's very, very difficult to get to the next level of success that you desire without struggling your way to it. If you're continually obeying and paying attention to the physical evidence that's surrounding you. When you decide to pull off from all of that evidence, as compelling as it is, I mean, it's really, really tempting to go into the bank account or go into the relationship with your teenager and just look at it and remember the shouting match that happened or the slamming doors or like the pit in your stomach when you saw that there was more month left at the end of your money or not. It doesn't even have to be that. It's just like, how do I grow this? And just feeling all of that struggle. When you're surrounded by that evidence or there's surprise bills that come up or expenses that come up, it's very compelling. It's very, very tempting to believe that that's true. To believe that that's out of your control, to believe that you're the victim of your circumstance. It's really easy to believe that. But when you start really working with the laws, what you're doing is you're harnessing the power of the universe, and now you're activating your sixth sense, and you are activating powers that transcend your five senses. And you start working with that. You start working with coincidence and serendipity and right place, right time without having to try to manipulate yourself and hope that you're in the right place at the right time. Oh my gosh, ladies, I used to do that. I'm like, am I here at the right time? Am I in the right place? I need to make some connections. Like I was micromanaging the whole thing instead of using the laws to serve me and using the laws to help me. But it activates your intuition. It activates these unseen powers that just smooth out the way for you and make the journey uphill so delightful. Because here's the thing, your success journey is uphill every part of the way, but we don't have to look at how steep the climb is because it actually leads us to really beautiful vistas along the way. But we got to have the right tools, and dragging a backpack filled with rocks behind us is not a proper tool as we're hiking this mountain. Instead, we want walking poles, right? We want a guide who can keep us on the right path when we lose the path. Like it just becomes amazing. These universal laws are such amazing guides to use. All right, we're going to wrap up this episode with the law of sacrifice. The law of sacrifice says if you want things to be different, something must be sacrificed in order for that to happen. Sacrifice is letting go of things of a lower nature so that you then have room to hold things of a higher nature. Now, sacrifice really puts people off because we've all heard, well, sacrifice is giving up something good for something better. But if you were anything like me back in the day, I was like, but what if something better doesn't come? And then I've given up the good and now I have crap. And so I sacrificed the good for the better, but what if this is as good as it gets? Even though I knew it wasn't as good as it got, but that was my fear. And so again, we got to look at what sacrifice really is. It's kind of an ironic law because really sacrifice is just trading up. When you are letting go of those things of a lower nature, you're letting go of worry, you're letting go of doubt, you're letting go of complacency, and you're giving yourself literally room so that you can hold those higher things of inspiration and greater understanding and inspired action. At the end of it, you turn around and you look at it and you're like, well, that wasn't a sacrifice at all. Actually, that was called trading up. And that's what sacrifice is. It's trading up. So think about this. You can't eat at McDonald's and at Ruth's Chris at the same time. One has to be sacrificed for another. You can't watch a movie and go to a play at the same time. One has to be sacrificed for another. And generally, we choose the thing that we want more anyway. And so it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. But let's talk about when we want to make real change. Let's say we want to drop 50 pounds, 30 pounds. I don't care how much it is, but let's say we want to release that. Well, there are things that have to be sacrificed for that. You've got to sacrifice the heavy, fatty foods. You've got to sacrifice the salty foods that cause more cravings. You got to sacrifice carbs to a certain extent, not to an extreme, but you've got to sacrifice the couch time so that you're moving your body. And there are times when you do a workout where it's a difficult workout and you're sore for a few days afterwards. Sometimes you got to sacrifice if you're an alcohol drinker, you got to sacrifice that for a little while. And at first, that's hard because our body craves those things and we like those things. And, objects at rest tend to stay at rest until something that has an opposite force that's more powerful than that gets them going. That's one of Newton's laws. I don't really remember which one it is, but you get my point. Objects in motion stay in motion. Objects in rest tend to stay at rest. And so it does feel like a sacrifice at first, but you start drinking more water. So you're peeing all the time, right? But then your skin starts to clear up and you start feeling like you have a little bit more energy. And then your clothes start to get a little bit looser and you realize that you can bench press a little bit more weight the next time. And as you continue along that, the cravings for the fatty foods and the really sugary foods, they go away. And instead, you want those foods that actually fuel your body and are nutritionally sound for your body. And after, we got to give it time. This doesn't happen in 14 minutes later. You've got this felt figure, right? You give it 3 months. Give yourself a good 90 days through this. And at the end of that, you realize, oh man, I dropped 3 dress sizes. More important than that, I feel amazing. I love what I see in the mirror. Was that a sacrifice? At the beginning, it felt like it, but it was no sacrifice at all. And it's just letting go of things of a lower nature so that you have room to hold things of a higher nature. It's trading up. Aren't these laws amazing? They are so powerful when you can see how they work in your life. So this is what I invite you to do. Pick one of these 4 laws that we've talked about and play with it this week. Get really intentional about what law you want to play with and then start using it. See how it comes up in your life and start utilizing it. You will be dazzled and amazed at how quickly you start shifting when you're using just one of these laws correctly. So play with those laws. Now, again, it doesn't matter which one, whichever one feels more fun to you or the most fun to you, pick it up and play with it. Now, if you want more examples of the laws and how they work in your life, I actually wrote a whole book about them called The Prosperity Approach. And all 21 universal laws, and by the way, there's a lot of ancillary laws and corollary laws as well. Those aren't in the book, but the main big players are here in my book. So the way you can get my book, you can go to Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's called The Prosperity Approach. You can go to my website, AllysonChavez.com, and just click on the top of the toolbar. It says buy the book. So just click it right there. It'll take you right to Amazon and grab the book and start playing with these laws. We're going to unpack 4 more laws to use to get you going next time. And until then, remember, prosperity becomes you.